We are creeping into that time of fantasy football where the waiver wire is really completely bare, so let's take advantage of it while we still can to create a super team on your bench. So you guys know, let's not waste any time getting into this video. The first waiver wire pickup we need to make to guarantee a super team on our bench is Trey McBride. And I'm going to talk about him super quickly because for some reason he's only rostered in 50% of leagues, but that is still higher than most. There's still a chance that he is available on your waiver wire, so go check it out right now before you see the rest of this video. I've talked about him in previous videos, but now is probably the last time you can get him on your team, and that's not because of the 20-point fantasy performance he just had. It's more about the underlying usage. Again, I'll go over it super quickly. If he's already rostered in your league, you can go ahead and skip to the next player. I have timestamps all throughout this video, so it's going to be pretty easy to do. But he had 9 targets last week. That was the most on the team, and he's running a 31% route completion rate. That is top 5 for tight ends. And this just means when the Cardinals are running pass plays, he's not always just blocking. On a good chunk of those plays, he is getting volume and he is running routes to be open and be a target. Now, with some of his volume probably inflated because this was Kyler Murray's first game back, so he's going to throw a little bit more of short check down passes. Yes, it is, but he is still a top tight end we need to be getting. He was the first tight end in his draft class to be drafted. He is a top talent. Kyler Murray is going to elevate this offense. He's going to continue to see opportunities. But if you guys are enjoying this video, make sure to go down and hit that sub button if you haven't already. You've already found where all the good information on YouTube is, so you might as well get the videos every single week. But you guys absolutely love the running backs in this video, so no surprise we need to be getting Devin Singletary with our second best ad of the week. This is a guy that somehow just decided to have a workhorse role in their game against the Bengals last week. His usage has been increasing week in and week out. Since week 6, we saw him get a lead role in the backfield, in the snaps, in the usage, in the running attempts, everything. And that was all while Dameon Pierce was still healthy and active. And now last week we get a game where there is no Dameon Pierce and he sees 30 rushing attempts. Now obviously the main drawback is Dameon Pierce, and when he is coming back, he will still 1000% have a role in this backfield. It's not just going to become Devin Singletary's workhorse again, but it'll probably continue to be split 50-50, and Singletary has looked like the better, more efficient running back the entirety of the season, so do not doubt his work is going to continue. Not to mention that the Texans offense has actually looked very good with CJ Stroud this season so far. In total, they've averaged 25 points a game. When your offense is that efficient, you're scoring that many points, there's going to be opportunities to throw Devin Singletary into your flex spot even if Dameon Pierce is healthy. Another drawback is that he doesn't really get worked in the receiving game, and that's not really too much of a problem, but when you're splitting a backfield 50-50, you want to hold on to some kind of role. But at the very least, he's an amazing trade bait piece, or he's a good handcuff if you have Dameon Pierce already. But number 3, keeping it on more running backs, this is a great week for fantasy running backs off the waiver wire, is Charbonnet, a guy I've been talking about since really the beginning of the offseason. And this is a guy that's been seeing more snaps than the workhorse back of the past 3 weeks. This is a backfield that has shown its true colors in plain sight completely for us, and let me explain what I'm talking about here. If you look at the usage, it is clear that Kenneth Walker will continue to dominate the early down snaps and the goal line work, but Charbonnet has carved himself a real role in the 2-minute drill, the third downs, and all of the passing downs. The reason I say this is because Charbonnet saw all 13 snaps in the 2-minute drill, literally 100% every single one of them over Kenneth Walker. And this is likely because in that 2-minute drill, the team is moving faster. They want a more dynamic back. That is a pass catcher. That is a runner as well. But it's not just that. He saw all 12, 100% of the third down snaps, again, for likely the same reason. More dynamic, more keeping the defenses guessing. This is a running back that we want to have in every single format, any league that we're in, because if anything were to happen to Kenneth Walker, he might literally be a league-winning running back. And yes, Kenneth Walker is going to continue to get a bulk of the usage. If we just look at what he got last week, he dominated in carries, even if the snap share was split. But the good thing is the snap share is split, and Charbonnet does have opportunities to get more work on his snaps that he's seeing. But these guys are complementary, and one injury to either of them is going to create a league winner. But their schedule for the next couple weeks is pretty tough. They get the 49ers twice, the Cowboys, and the Eagles in their next 5, and those are all tough run defenses. So we really could see a scenario where they use Charbonnet a little bit more because they can't just rely on pounding the run game. They're going to need some passing. They're going to need some dynamic plays, keep the defenses guessing. Charbonnet could have a really big role in the next couple weeks. Again, keeping it on the running backs here, who isn't that big of a name compared to these other guys on this list, that is Chandler. And this is mostly because of the injury to Alexander Mattison. He left the game in the 3rd quarter last week with a concussion. He did not return, likely will not play next week as well. When it comes to the NFL's new protocol for concussions, and especially in the running back position, they usually are going to miss at least a game. And this puts Chandler as the clear only workhorse RB1 in this backfield unless they elevate practice squad guys, but nobody in this offense for the running back position really scares me. And even with Mattison still healthy, Chandler was increasing his snaps and sneaking up on Mattison. In last week's game, they were splitting the backfield before Mattison got injured, and he looked like the more efficient back. Even if he was seeing less rush attempts in itself, he was more efficient on the attempts he did get, and the snaps were still pretty split. But he's got some pretty great matchups coming up. First against the Broncos, who allow the most points to opposing running backs this year. Then the Bears, who are top 10, and then the Raiders, who are top 5. Some very, very good running back back-to-back matchups here in scripts that you should be picking him up for. He is a great plug-and-play guy. I think you could start him this week in place of Alexander Mattison. Once Mattison comes back, I would pump the brakes on starting him, but he's still an amazing trade piece, handcuff, or anything you want to use him for. Go grab him while you can. But moving into the sneakiest ad of the weekend, maybe one of my favorites, the guy that we can pick up when everybody else is picking up the big name guys. We can go ahead and get Rondale More, who could very well be a league winner. Last week he led the wide receivers in targets and was only behind Trey McBride. That was no fluke. Last year when Kyler Murray was healthy and there was no DeAndre Hopkins, he was very efficient. He was averaging 5 catches, almost 6 a game, and he was a top 20 wide receiver, just barely outside the top 15. And we saw this kind of production continue last week. He saw 8 targets. Yes, it didn't turn into the most fantasy points, but if anything, that's great for us fantasy players because nobody's really going to be putting their top waiver claim on him, and that's exactly why he's a sneaky ad for us. But if you guys don't have the most fab or the top waiver priority and you don't get the first guy you want, Rondale Moore could be a guy after the waivers clears to go pick up and win a league. Kyler Murray coming back is only going to elevate this passing offense and offense in general. They just got a win in his first game back, and that was against a pretty tough defense. I don't have any worries. It might be a little bit rocky in the first 2 weeks, but he's going to carve out a role like he has in the past. History repeats itself. But he does have some tough matchups coming up, but after his bye week, he has one of the best, if not the best, fantasy playoff schedules for the wide receivers. Another sneakier guy we can go ahead and look at to add off the waivers is Rashid Shaheed. And if you guys have been around this page for long enough, this might be crazy coming out of my mouth because I've been telling you for weeks, don't pick up Rashid Shaheed. He's a waste of time. We don't need him in fantasy. But all of that changed for one reason. The reason I was saying he's not worth a waiver ad is because he just didn't get the snaps. He didn't get the field time. He didn't get the opportunities. He just was not being used. He was the 4th option behind all of these guys, Alvin Kamara, Chris Olave, Michael Thomas, even Taysom Hill. But now things have changed. And what changed is that Michael Thomas has gotten a knee injury. Now it's not season ending, but it is reported to actually be very serious and could put him out for a couple weeks easily. He also apparently threw some bricks at construction workers. Those two aren't related, but I mean, it happened. But again, the reason I was so hesitant to picking up Shaheed in the beginning of the season is because he just didn't get the usage. He's a critical wide receiver in real life football for the Saints, but it really just didn't correlate to fantasy. But now he has no choice but to be the wide receiver 2 behind Chris Olave. And it's not just the fact that he'll be the wide receiver 2 now, so we got to pick him up because he moves up in the depth chart, whatever. More of it is because Jameis Winston is also the starting quarterback now. There is no Derek Carr, at least for a week. And you might be thinking,
oh my brother, this dude actually stinks. What is this guy talking about? Jameis Winston is a better quarterback than Derek Carr. This guy's on something. Let me unsubscribe right now. No.
that is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that his play style matches Rashid Shaheed. Let me explain. If any of you have ever seen Jameis Winston play, you know he's not a guy to throw checkdowns. He likes to chuck it downfield. He does not care what happens. He doesn't care if he gets intercepted. He's gonna throw those big deep passes, and that is exactly where Rashid Shaheed thrives. That is his role in this offense. That is where he gets his bread and butter. And I have facts to back this up. Rashid Shaheed is the number 2 wide receiver on the year in fantasy points per target, and that's because every time he catches a ball, it's a 50-yard touchdown. Now granted, he might not catch many, but it happens. But again, now he's the wide receiver 2. There should be more volume, more opportunity. Go pick up Shaheed while he's still on your waivers. But I'm also interested in Elijah Moore, and this is a guy that we can go through and pick up on our waivers for a couple reasons. The first one and the main one being that the Browns are really starting to run a top-heavy offense, which pretty much just means they're getting all of their top stars involved and nobody else. Their target volume is extremely concentrated. In their win last week over the Ravens, there was only 3 wide receivers to see over 5 targets. And that was Amari Cooper with 6 catches, David Njoku with 6 catches, and Elijah Moore with 5. And everybody else on the team either had 1 catch or 0 in a game where they put up over 30 points. But Moore matched his season high in snaps at 83%. He saw 7 targets. He's a guy for a bit of a deeper league if you are in one. For most people, he won't be necessarily startable that we can just lock and load in our lineups unless there was an injury to Amari Cooper. But he's still going to get that consistent target share. He's going to have a high floor if you need a fill-in guy, but he won't have the highest ceiling. But ever since they traded Donovan Peoples-Jones, he has been the clear wide receiver 2, and there is no doubt about it. Even if we don't get prime Houston Deshaun Watson back, he's still going to be a viable option. But again, if you guys watched the video last week, you know where I'm going with this. We need to be adding Zay Jones, and I don't understand how his roster percentage has gone down to 27%. It goes down every week. I don't understand. That is an absolute crime. Go get off this video, check your waiver wires, go make a claim for him. He's been out with injury all season. He's only played 3 games, and those 3 games weren't even 3 healthy games. But he's been the wide receiver 3 or even 2 with the way Calvin really has been playing and how they're using him in this offense. He was a real threat to this wide receiver room earlier in the year. Week 1, he had a 23% team target share, and then in week 2, he had a 19% team target share. And you might be looking at me like,
oh, Okay, well, that's just a small target sample. 19% is lower than 23. His target percentage was going down.
No, he saw a 60% snap share because he got injured in week 2. He was on pace for a higher target share than in week 1. Now, it'll definitely be interesting to see how this wide receiver room operates when all 3 of them are healthy again, because most of the time you can't run 3 wide receiver sets every single time. But we've seen from the beginning of this year and the end of last year, he really started to break out. He's going to have a role in this offense. At the very least, he'll see 60-65% of the snaps. He is an amazing roster builder for completely free off the waiver wire. I guarantee he's not rostered and nobody's putting a claim in for him. They probably don't even remember he exists. He is slated to come back this week, so now is probably the last time you can get him before he plays, and then he starts getting his name back in the news and people start picking him up again. So if you want to get him, you got a free roster spot, pick him up because he very well could be a league winner when he's healthy. Let's go ahead and end this video off with some defenses you can be picking up if you stream off the waiver wire, or if your defense has a bye week this week. The Miami Dolphins are a great one to go consider, and that is solely because we have to be targeting bad offenses and great matchups in these games and in these defenses we want to stream, and they get a terrible team in the Aiden O'Connell led Raiders. That is not a good offense. Jalen Ramsey is officially off the injury report. He is healthy, he is playing, it makes his secondary so much better, and that is going to be trouble for Aiden O'Connell. And a whole bunch of people went through and dropped the Miami defense because they were on their bye last week. They're only rostered in I think 36-37% of leagues, so you can pick them up pretty easily if you put a claim on them. But if you can't get them, or they're not available, or you just don't win the claim, you can go ahead and get the Commanders, which is a team that nobody's going to want to pick up. They get a great matchup against the Giants this week, and I mean, the Giants look like a mess. Yes, the Commanders aren't much better and their defense isn't the best, but the Tommy DeVito led Giants is probably, or not probably, the worst offense in the NFL. I mean, yes, they had a bad game against the Cowboys. Everybody has a bad game against the Cowboys. Their defense is great, but the Giants are not projected to score a lot from Vegas, which already sets the floor for this defense even higher. Earlier in the season when they played, the Giants only put up 14 points, and that was with Tyrod Taylor, a clear better quarterback. Expect turnovers, expect passing attempts, interceptions, sacks, everything. Expect everything. The Commanders are a great defense if you need to pick one up off the waivers. But that is going to finish off this video of the waiver wire must-adds for this week. If you guys do not want to miss the waiver wire traps video coming tomorrow, make sure to have your post notifications on, or subscribe if you haven't already. But I'll see you guys in that video tomorrow.